Today is the 4th day of the February 1985 7-day retreat. I've written down again several questions that have come up in meetings, and we will see how far we will go with them. Again, let us mention that this is not a lecture. That one listens to, but can we all enter into the question put and go together as far as we can go? One thing that always comes up in retreat is this image of the teacher that is gravely engraved in the mind, not just since one started what is called Zen training, but it goes back to one's pre-nursery school days. This idea and image of someone who is the authority, someone who knows, got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, expertise. One thing one person mentioned is charisma, whatever that is. And does one nourish these images, or is one affected by this image in relating to each other, either here in this room or in the meeting room? Does one have an image of this person here? What one knows she's like, or what one hopes she is like, or what other people have said that she is like? Or what one just assumes without even questioning it, that she must be like? And if one sees, yes, there is an image that I have of this person, does one see that this prevents a direct meeting? Person to person. Of course, inevitably related to the image of a teacher is the image of oneself as being the non-teacher, everything that's not teacher. Student is a word that has been used a lot in describing the relationship. I don't see that it's applicable, even though we used it in the little book we put out. We still used many words in there for lack of other words which may be coming if we ever put out another book. Seeing oneself as what? You look at it. as one who doesn't have what he or she has got. Someone at a certain stage of development. These are all ideas that have been imprinted into the brain. There are these images of being a seeker, a Zen seeker, or a Zen student. A religious seeker. Do you see that these are images, words and images, which prevent relationship directly, person to person, without image? One may not even know what that is, because one has never lived without an image, and never met or related to anybody else without having an image of that person. The brain seems to demand this from habit. And this habit, at one stage of our human development, was necessary. It is still necessary in areas where one needs to remember that fire burns, or a wild boar is dangerous and one better get out of its way, or a bear, grizzly bear, snake, a poisonous snake. Very vital to have an image, a memory image, to be told about it, to learn about it, not to forget it, so that one can act appropriately. Not have to find out by being bitten by a poisonous snake that it's deadly. But this mechanism is used indiscriminately in our relationship. Remembering what this person did, was like, said, how he or she hurt me or flattered me, and this immediately affects the relationship now as we're meeting. And therefore it's not a true relationship. It is image or role meeting with image or role. Two roles meeting. Two role players, or two masks, if you want to use that metaphor for what it's worth. Sometimes in the opening talk I mention the reason for walking around, if there is any reason at all. The one that has always come to mind in looking at it is to at times be with everyone here. We're in this together, and being up in the room most of the time. I come down and come into the room and stand there with each person for a while. I mentioned the word as friends. Someone, if I understood this person right, said that too has become an image in the mind, what friends are. So now Toni as a friend is a new image. It wasn't used, obviously, to create a new image. The reason the word was used was that usually when one is with friends, real friends, and maybe one doesn't have real friends, maybe such a thing doesn't exist, if one is always caught up in images. But one may know meeting with a person one calls a friend where there's no pretense. One is not on guard. Not afraid to be found out. lets one's hair down, or can laugh and be silly. So if one wonders, why does she now want to be friends with me? This is how this person had understood it, that Toni said, I come down because I want you to be my friend, or I want to be your friend. This is not what was said. It was just being together as friends. Maybe I didn't say it this way, I don't remember. But this is how it was meant. Meaning, no masks, no pretenses, if possible, or to use this time of silence and quietness to see the masks and the pretenses and the guards that we've built up over all the years of our life, to shelter each other from each other so as not to get hurt, or in order to impress each other, which is also a protection against the hurt of being not very important. So the reaction to that is to try to impress. That the image of the teacher, whatever that image may be for each individual person, that it comes up is not surprising, because it sits there in the brain and it is associated with so many things that are done here. The waiting line, I don't like that word waiting line. We hope to eliminate this when we're in a new place. Not call it a waiting line, because what is one waiting for? Well, one is waiting for getting into the room, but can we just call the room by its name? I think that room will be called the solarium. That's a nice name. But what if the sun doesn't shine? Then it's a cloudarium. And people report this, people who observe it and honestly report that sitting there, moving up in the line, something happens to the organism. There's a certain nervousness that settles in or overcomes one, which, if one looks at a little bit deeper, has to do with past experiences. The feeling one has to prove something or show something, be approved, be accepted, or the fear of rejection, of not being loved, for failure of showing progress. All these ideas are wired or programmed into the brain and are not just sitting in the brain, but the brain is attached to all the glandular and organ functions of the body. And usually discomfort results from this. And then, as we talked it in great detail the other day, there comes the often very subtle, sometimes very gross feeling, I don't want to feel this way. It is awful. Why do I have to put myself through this? This feeling itself, this thought and feeling of opposition, of resistance, creating new organismic reactions of tension, glandular functions, and so forth, which only add to the discomfort. Can this whole process be viewed, observed dispassionately as occurring for whatever reasons? The more sensitive and subtle the awareness, the more one notices association itself. This, it has connected with that. It goes fast, but it can be observed. And to the extent that there is dispassionate observation of this whole complex of teacher excitement, or we'll just name it that for a moment, it loses its vitality, its importance, to the extent that it is observed, attended to, listened to, without any kind of position taken. It's good or bad, it shouldn't happen, by now I should really be over this, I know she isn't like this, she's told me, we've talked about it so many times, so why am I so slow? See what one does. Observe it, and what that does. One has already hit oneself with a new judgment. You may find, if you just let that happen, because it does happen, because we are conditionable beings. I think all of us at one time have heard this, what is said to have been the first conditioning experience, where a hungry dog, before the time of being given his food, was exposed to the ringing of a bell. And then the food was served. And it didn't take long before just ringing the bell made the dog salivate profusely, which before he only did when the food came. So all kind of things which are in close proximity to that which upsets us or excites us become themselves the upsetters and exciters, even if the original stimulus isn't there anymore. Enough other things have been in proximity and get the organism, through this associative network, get the organism excited and upset, in the absence of attention. We will talk about that in a moment. Attention can set in at any moment. It has no special exit or entrance times. It's either there or it isn't there. And when it is there, what has just been described can be observed, seen, dispassionately. Unless immediately a thought comes up, it shouldn't be like this. And that too can be observed, and the effect of that thought. So that the whole thing ceases to be my fate, my poor lot, my difficult condition, and becomes an opportunity to see and understand the human being totally, completely, as he or she functions from moment to moment, without immediately identifying with this. This is me. I'm getting better. I'm getting worse. I'm not making progress. These are things which totally interfere with attention. Then there's no attention. Then there's just that program running. So it has happened. Something has triggered a certain discomfortable feeling in the stomach as one sits in that line of mats. So what? Let it be. It doesn't disable one. It can be there, be left completely alone, albeit there's awareness of it. It's there, and therefore there's awareness of it. And if nothing is done to oppose it, to try to change it, improve it, or, if all of these habitual actions are quiet in the attending, then it ceases to be a problem. and it will disappear. One won't even notice that it's gone. And this thing of coming into the meeting room and meeting together, is it possible to do this without masks or images? Wonder about it. Ask that question of yourself. Somebody told me after a talk, when I listen to your talk, it always makes me think what I should be doing and what I can't do. But that's not the spirit in which these talks are given. Something is missed. I never say, you should do that. This is how you should do it. I'm wondering if it's possible. Usually it's put in form of a question. Can one do it? Can one enter the room and not have an image of that person sitting there? Find out. Or, not I should have no image, but if the image comes up, can it be seen? And can it be seen that it is an image? It's not who's sitting there. Who's sitting there is not an image. It's a live human being, not a memory or an associated thing. Sometimes one isn't even aware what all the memories are. Not necessarily memories of this particular person that one meets, but some semi-conscious or unconscious memories of another teacher way back, or a parent, or a boss. It's this association mechanism we talked about, the bell and the food. This just having to appear, one doesn't really have to, but appearing before someone in itself associates maybe with disagreeable past situations. Be aware of it so that one doesn't project this onto the person. If one does, then there is no possibility for a free meeting. If awareness isn't there, then projection usually goes on. That's a fact. It can be observed by each one of us. If one is really consumed with a passion to find out what is free, loving relationship. Maybe I'm making too much of a jump here to bring loving in, but when there is no image and no past stuff interfering and holding one in bondage, then this does emerge. A feeling of mutual care and affection. It's not that one has to unearth past experiences. Please don't interpret what is being said to mean that. It doesn't mean that. Things come up on their own. A flash of insight of some past experience. Yeah, this is what this reminds me of. What was at the bottom of my fear. So it comes up, and then just see it and and not wallow in it. Just the fact that it comes up is sufficient. To take note of it, be aware of it, and that's that. There are particular associations with a Zen teacher, which one has through either past experience or lots of reading about Zen teachers. And the more I see how these associations are there in people's minds, the stronger grows the realization that maybe we have to drop this word Zen from our name altogether. It seems to be so difficult to shed all these associations, past and present, of people who are on the, quote, inside of the Zen tradition and people who are on the, quote, outside of it. Having ideas about Zen teachers, Zen students, Zen studies, Zen practice, which are ideas, and shape the mind, affect it, condition it. The whole thing of the lineage of teachers accrediting each other, accrediting students, that I think is the word, or authenticating, I don't know right now either one of those or another one that starts also with A. A teacher authenticating his disciple as being now an authentic, accredited teacher, and yet one reads and hears that teachers among each other discredit each other. Just read the other day one person saying about a contemporary teacher, imagine this teacher who did such and such was accredited by 3 of his teachers. So what's the use of all of this? Is it just to attract students to this authentic tradition? I'm not trying to make fun of it, but I see the danger of the whole thing. One person saying, yes, you've got it. You, not that this is what a teacher says, but there is something there. The teacher versus the student. The student needing the teacher to authenticate his experience, which is not even an experience. Because to have an experience, there must be an experiencer, and as long as there is an experiencer, there is duality. No matter how wonderful, marvelous, or whatever the experience may be. Also, the teacher asking questions. This becomes imprinted in the mind, being asked questions, and people, therefore, may dread being asked a question in a meeting. And the question may come from nowhere of this kind of testing tradition. It may be just an opening question to look at something together. But because of the tradition, the memory, the association, the conditioning, one gets into this examination spirit of excitement or nervousness. Is he or she testing me? So how can one put all of that aside and start freshly? Each time. Has to happen each time, because images may grow up from one time to the next. So attention has to be astute and open, not any opinions or convictions creep in its stead. It has nothing to do with time. It is not forever. That is irrelevant. At a moment of attention, time is irrelevant. It is not, the concept is not there. But the thought will at last is a thought, and the moment this thought comes up, attention is no longer whole. And then a feeling which is called doubt may come up. Do I really understand? The moment thought says, do I really understand? What happens? Find out. Either one sees it's a thought, and the seeing dispels the doubt, or one gets all kinds of thoughts and ideas rush in, and attention is gone, awareness is gone, and doubt is sizzling. Not that one shouldn't question, on the contrary. Question, test oneself. Doesn't need a teacher to test one. Ask questions of oneself. And leave them sit there, and then observe in the light of the question. On all levels of one's being. Not just on the superficial verbal level. Please, if this leaves questions in your mind, bring it up to a meeting. We'll look at it freshly. Another thing that was brought up was why do you say that the ego is an illusion? Seeing it, living it, it seems anything but an illusion. It seems so real, so solid, so palpable. Why do you say it's an illusion? Let us take the example as an example that the mind is occupied with feeling of jealousy. The thought has come up. Of someone else. Well, you know what brings up jealousy. I don't want to go into all the details. One is jealous. Jealousing is raging, not just in thought, but throughout the body. Obviously, of course, it's a very palpable emotion, very real. Or anger, or greed, or feeling of pleasure. It's all very real. It's even if a scientist put electrodes to the body, something would register. But what brought the feeling of jealousy about? Maybe we have to start simpler than this. Here, this body is sitting here. Has a name. We're given a name when we were born, and first name, last name, which has great social conveniences. Couldn't get our mail, couldn't address each other in a group if we didn't have names. There are certain talents or capacities we have. One has this talent, this capacity, someone else has another. These are all given facts. We have different looks, we're different size, different age, born in different social class, culture, country, times. All these are facts. But the moment one says, this here is me, this is something extra. And it is a thought. Look at it. Sitting here, one can see oneself in one's mind's eye, as it were. One can see oneself sitting here, or think of oneself sitting here. Do you see that this is a thought? This here is not a thought, but seeing myself sitting here is an image. And this image I call me. That's me. Are you following this? Are we doing this together? And then one thinks, well, what is this me? And one thinks of, well, what does one think of? Maybe one's possessions, one's likes and dislikes, one's talents, one's job, one's past. All pictures that come up in the mind. One's past experiences, what one has gone through, one's difficult adolescence or difficult marital life or lovely married life, one's childhood, difficult or pleasant. All of these, aren't they all memories that come up right now as you're looking? The brain scanning to see what is me produces these memories and past experiences, which includes what people have told us that we are, which we may not remember anymore. We were told from the first day we were born whether we were cute or got a little grandson who is so cute that wherever he goes, it is almost a curse. Everybody says, isn't he cute? He's heard this all his life. What must that do to a person? This is me now to him. He is cute. He has learned that. And another one who may stand next to him, a person looks right past him to this child saying, you are cute, and the other one draws a conclusion from that. Nobody even has to tell him he's not cute. tries to look to the eyes, but they pass him by. They go somewhere else of the teacher, whether it's a nurse, a doctor, it never fails. So this also makes up this conglomerate of images, how people reacted to us and are reacting to us today. And we're gleaning it. We have learned to glean it from people's eyes, how they see us and evaluate us, so that we get a feeling of what we are. Included in this feeling of me is what I want to be in the future. Tomorrow, what I'm going to do after retreat, but also what I want to make of my life, is how we put it. These are all ideas. Not that some of these ideas aren't turned into actually studying or getting degrees or buying land or becoming a carpenter or so. But there's always, one isn't just a carpenter, but one has now the image that I am a carpenter, which is extra, which is thought and image, and not the real sawing, hammering, putting a table together. That needs no image of oneself as being anything. That's the real thing that's happening. The image is extra. You could say, now wait a minute, the image is real too, because something is happening electrochemically, neurologically in the brain that constitutes an image. Yes, that's true to this extent. An image is real. Put an electrode to the head when certain pleasurable or painful thoughts are induced or thought, and something will record something. Thoughts are not ethereal affairs, they are real processes of energy or even matter. Matter and energy being not two different things. So I live in the pictures and images of what I have collected about myself, what I expect of myself, what I expect people to do to me, how they should treat me. And if something doesn't pan out that way, then the image smarts. Deeply hurt, or feels proud or flattered if one is told how terrific one is. The image being a totally unstable affair, it always has to be fed, supported, maintained, defended, aggrandized, progressed. One has to, all of the ideas of the civilization, of the culture, go into this image too. Not just one's personal life, but everything we're in touch with helps to build up this image of me. Is it a legitimate question to ask, who am I if I had no image of myself? If there was just the bare fact of my physical functions, the abilities, talents, or absence of talents, capacities or absence of capacity, just what one does from moment to moment. Is it possible for a human being to live without image? The image being what is called illusory. made up of thought and memory, experiences, projections, which in themselves are real occurrences, but they are not me. They're just idea of what I am, or should be, or shouldn't be. Even though at the moment that my husband or boyfriend has an affair with another woman, tremendous feeling of pain and jealousy. I wonder if I had no image of myself, whether that would take place. No image of mutual possession. I wonder what would take place if there was no image of oneself and one's husband or boyfriend. How would one meet such a situation? All one can do is observe what happens to the image and not confuse the image with me, with this. There may be sadness, there may be pain, hurt, but feeling of self-pity involves an image. One sees oneself as the victim, and then this elicits sorrow for oneself, feeling sorry for oneself, or feelings of revenge. All this takes, all the scene, the stage is the mind, the imagination, which then leads to action, to concrete action, which is really reaction to all the images. So coming back to this question, why do you say that the ego or the me is illusory? Find out if this is a burning question. Find out what it is. Who am I? From moment to moment. And not say I shouldn't have any images, but see if they're there. And see what they do. And wonder if they're inevitable. Because to assume that this is human nature to have images of oneself is another idea. And also, can one find out whether in attending, listening, sitting here in a quiet, silent retreat with quite a bit of energy, because energy is not wasted in our usual daily wear and tear. So there is energy. In quietly sitting, quietly attending, with one's total being. Not just with the ears or with the head, but completely, wholly giving one's life to it, as it were. Listen. The mind is so attentive. Is there any room for image? And if it comes up, can't it be seen and dropped as quickly as it comes up? Not doing all its trip of associations throughout the body. Find out. I'm not saying you must do it, it has to happen, you should do it. That's all idea. But what actually happens? In a moment of attention, you don't even know. We will end here for today.